Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Elevation Cast. Today I'm joined by Angelique of Pi Accountancy, and she's going to tell us all about her background, where the Pi came from, and we'll have a few conversations around accountancy and the industry in general. So looking forward to a chat with Angelique. Angelique, please feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and where you've come from.
Thanks, Aidan, for inviting me on. I'm Angelique from Pi Accountants. Gosh, I've been an accountant for what feels like millions of years. It's not close off, actually. Pi is a small practice based in Buckinghamshire. We specialise in any SME. Well, we're very much an SME-sized practice. We're a non-auditing practice, so any audits we do move on to other accountants that we work with, so they will do the audit work. These days, since HMRC increased the limit, there's quite a lot of practices now that won't audit. Mainly because of the costs of it, really, but generally we don't audit. But we do run a very friendly and happy little accountancy practice. We do really care about our clients. And I know everybody says that, but we really do care about our clients. I've been in business for so many years, as I said, but over those years, things have changed considerably from when I started, when it was paper-based all the way through to now computer and tech problems in respect of everything being computerized, which in some ways has made life easier and in some ways much harder.
Yeah. I can imagine. So the first thing that I noticed about Pi Accountancy was your website. I know it's very, very different to your kind of standard stereotypical accountancy website, and it certainly stood out to me. What was the inspiration? Where's that kind of come from?
Interesting question. Okay, so I think generally I had two choices in my life, really. One to go on the sort of very arty route and one to be an accountant. And obviously I've chose the accounting route for whatever reason at the time, and there's a whole story behind that as well. But once I was in the industry, it becomes very obvious to anyone inside and outside the industry. As soon as you mention the fact that you're an accountant, people sort of yawn. I think after going to many a conference and seeing the sort of sea of grey and the conversation as accountants all getting together, that's all we sort of talk about is tax. I can see where it comes from, but it's been my mission to make sure that we are everything other than that sort of boring concept of accountants. So I think throughout the whole period I have been trading, I've been trying to mitigate that, and to move forward into a much more positive role of actually there's a lot more to us. And I have found there's a lot of us out there that are trying to steer away from that sort of belief that we are just done and boring. And my website hopefully attains or brings that to the forefront. And I think one of the other things, I have done those sort of normal accounting websites. I have had those, and there's lots of information on many an accountant's website, but I have yet to more than probably one or two clients over 30 years in practice that I can possibly say have ever read anything off of a website. In fact, I'll go as far as to say I don't even think most of them read my letters. I don't think logging onto a website to read something about capital gains tax is probably going to be remote. So it then became, well, actually, if we're not going to do that, why don't we do something that's just a little bit more fun? And a bit more me. And you can't see my office here, but there's a unit there with shoes and handbags and sculptures and things in it. We just try and stay away from that idea of accounting.
Yeah, I think it's wrongly stereotyped, and there's still a lot of colour within accountancy. There's still a lot of people that or accountants that aren't what people stereotype accountants to be. And I do find that it makes those individuals more relatable. Accountants that have charisma, personality, and just something unique about them, I think naturally makes them stand out more. So I've known that's probably what your clients probably appreciate.
We've actually had clients say that they actually like coming to see us, which is we're very laid back and we've never been that stereotypical accountants firm, and that goes back. I mean, years ago, and this is a long time ago, but people would almost dress up to come to an accountant. Put on a suit, and it was just a bit bizarre, really. The whole thing. We're humans as well. If they're working in a trade, then why would they want to get dressed up just to come and see their accountant?
Yeah.
And I also found, I mean, there's women I've worked with who felt a little bit as though, because years ago it was very much a male dominated profession. But I
Yeah.
think years ago I had women who said they felt a little intimidated by the whole experience. Yeah, there's been lots of things I think that have driven us into the route that we have. But the most is that I actually like people and talking to people and communicating with people. So to get the most out of them, you want them to feel relaxed and
Yeah.
we want them to talk to us. And often in a conversation, you can be halfway through a conversation with somebody and they'll mention something that's happened or happening. And because of that, it's sort of logged then as something that they might need to talk about, which they may not even have realised, or they may not be aware of legislative changes in that area. So the more you can communicate with people, the easier it is. And
Absolutely.
so hence, I think I've seen a lot of accountants now moving to sort of online platforms where it's only online and it's pretty much via email. You don't get to communicate.
Yeah.
And I find that a little disconcerting.
Yeah, certainly. There's that. I think people buy from people, and there's always got to be that personal touch with business. People want to know that who they're dealing with, is a human at the end of the day. Does have ethics and morals, and that they're they've got a duty of care for their business, especially your accountant. You want your accountant to. It's one of the most important partnerships within a business, I think, because at the end of the day, if the numbers don't work, you're not going to be in business for very long. And I think, ultimately, it's your accountant that can give you that
No.
advice and guidance.
And I think generally we do try and guide clients. They don't always listen, but we do try and guide them. And I think because we're in finance, and finance is one of those things that is quite personal to everybody, and they're sharing a lot of their all of their personal finances with us
Yeah.
realistically. So when it actually comes to other things, it becomes easier for them to talk to us about anything else going on in their lives as well. And I have had clients phone me and sort of desperately wanting to speak to me, and it's like I really don't like who my son's going out with at the moment. I think I can't really help with that one. So I think it
Yeah.
does sort of lean a little bit to that people do open up to you anyway. Yeah. It's an interesting career, really. I love it, but I can understand why people
It is
feel
how
that.
you build long-lasting relationships and working relationships. I think once it becomes more than just a working relationship, that is when you have a client more or less, for life. I've got a lot of my own clients that I've worked with for years and continue to do so. And I've forged friendships through business. And, I go in now and it is like going in to see a friend. It's like a friendly catch up and talk about all
Yeah.
sorts. And then there's a little bit of business in there as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and we've got a lot of clients who we've been through, from the beginning, really. And sadly, we lost a client this week, actually, no longer a client, but we've stayed in touch. And sadly,
Mm.
he passed away this week. But
Actually,
it
that.
is it's a weird thing. You do get to build those relationships, and we get clients who have moved on and not passed away, but just moved away.
Yeah.
And when they pop back, they'll pop in and say hello. And I actually quite like that.
Yeah.
To me, that's achieving that relationship. And you never know what comes from it as well in any business. You meet people, you talk to people, and it's how that relationship, what's the word, expands, moves forward, really, that allows you then to meet other people via that person. So you get recommendations or you get referrals out, or
Yeah.
it is all about relationships. And I feel a bit sad at the moment because I feel the world's going slightly in the other direction where it's much easier to send a text or to send an email, where actually picking up the phone is just so much nicer.
Yeah, it is become all about instant messaging. Everything's instant, instant, instant. And it's rather than just taking some time to actually have a human interaction. It's just too easy to send a message, or I've sent an email, get back to me when you can. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do chase. I mean, clients busy, we're busy, but you do need to chase people sometimes for that response as well. It becomes quite difficult for some people, but it's so easy to say, well, yeah, I've sent an email, I've sent another email, I've sent a chaser email. And you can have
Mm.
systems now that certainly for us that you can chase in payments or you can chase in, but actually just picking up the phone can often, you can get that information and you would have had that information almost immediately.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think in some ways we've lost a little bit because of that. And I think the new generations, and I'm finding certainly with newer people coming through, they don't like to pick up a phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. It's, yeah, hopefully it's not, well, you never know. The world is never a changing place, and each new generation work and operate and socialize and communicate in different ways. And, the generation before seemed to think that it's not the right way of doing things. But then life kind of moves forward. So you just wonder
Mm,
what the world is going to look like in another 20, 30 years. It's a scary thought, really.
it really is.
AI,
It actually really is.
metaverses and
Yeah.
yeah, all these online worlds, Meta that are building. Oh, it seems very science fiction, but it's almost coming to reality, which is quite weird.
Yeah, and I think the difficulty though is that that companies are doing the same thing in certain cases. With us, it's trying to get hold of HMRC, and I know that HMRC want to move, and I think it was in the press a little while ago that they actually want to move to a completely online platform where there's no real telephone communication. Now, if I go back 30 years when I first started, I could pick up a phone to HMRC in my local office. I could speak to them, I could agree something, and we could move forward. Now, I don't know if you've tried phoning out HMRC, but
Not for a while, thankfully.
it's really not fun. And you can be on hold for an hour, get cut off. It can take us hours to get through to them. And it's the same with letters. We're not getting responses to those either. I got a letter the other day responding to a letter that I sent 5 years ago.
No way.
Yeah,
That's
they are, yeah, that's
what's the
not, I would love
yeah,
to
yeah.
say it's unusual, but it isn't particularly unusual. We don't get responses. And that actually makes it really difficult for accountants because I think clients sometimes think you're not doing something
Yeah, it just seems
and
the amount of
the problem. Mm,
yeah, the amount of tax that the HMRC
mm.
collect, you just think this should just it seems like they're cutting the budget more and more, and it just seems taxes go up, but the investment on the actual infrastructure for
Yeah.
collecting those taxes is going down and down. It's just bizarre, isn't it?
It is, and I feel sorry for some of the people that work there, to be honest, because
Yeah,
time you actually get through. I mean, as agents, obviously, we get through, and they call us agents, not accountants. And by the time we get through, often I've forgotten what I called them for. So it's like,
yeah,
oh, I've just stuck them on hold waiting.
yeah.
But I think for most of them that work there, they do get abuse, and that isn't fair.
No, you're right.
But because of it, their turnover's higher.
Yeah.
And so actually, you're not getting people that are trained in the areas that you need an answer. So often I'll get through to HMRC or one of the girls will get through to HMRC and we will find that there is no answer because the person doesn't know the answer
Mm.
and she'll put it through to a technical team that will come back to us that never come back to us. It's a very difficult time, I think, for everybody in all sectors because I don't believe it's just HMRC that are like this. I think
Yeah,
most of the government offices are struggling a little bit, but I
yeah,
think they're definitely with all the changes moving forward into getting people online and getting people to have their own HMRC services accounts. Great ideas, but if they don't work, there is no way to resolve it
yeah.
lays a problem for the client and for us because we look as though we're not doing our job when actually we just can't move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. So tell me a little bit more about Pi Accountancy then. So I know you have a team behind you or working alongside you. So when did the business launch and at what point did you start to recruit and whereabouts are you guys now? Take me through that journey.
Okay, so as I said to you, I've been in practice for many years. So I started in partnership in 1992. I broke from that in 2002 when I moved to where we are now and decided that I would go it alone, as they say. And from there, I've had a few different trading names, and we've moved forward. But Pi was launched in April 2018, so we've been trading as Pi Accountancy since 2018, and it has. I mean, we've seen so many changes. So we definitely, there's a few of us that work in, obviously, we're between bookkeeping. I'm the only actual chartered accountant here, but I do have AAT qualified and part qualified people working with me who are great. I think with anything, when you're running a business, it's quite hard to get a team that fit together, and that is for any business a difficulty. But we have a very good team, and actually, I have one of the girls who used to work with me 20 years ago who stopped working with me when her children were very young, and she's joining us again the end of the month. So I'm really excited because we worked very well together. So yeah, it's a small team. We do everything from bookkeeping, payroll, all the way through to full accounts, management accounts, tax planning. We work with private tax clients, so clients who aren't actually in business but still need to complete tax returns for one reason or another. We do an element of pretty much anything that any business would need to do. And I think between us all, we've got it quite tied up. So we work well together. Everyone gets on really well together. And yeah, it's a nice little practice.
Good. Yeah, definitely. It sounds it. Like, I mean, even the, like I say, just from looking on the website, you can see that the kind of the camaraderie or the relationship between you guys certainly seems to be there. I think that's the important thing, creating a culture where people enjoy coming to work is super important.
Yeah, it really is. And I think our next stage actually is to move over to having a 4-day week. So that's sort
Amazing.
of, we're hoping to do that from early next year.
Brilliant.
And I think COVID was a big eye opener, wasn't it, to
Mm,
people to try and get their lives in balance.
yes.
And I think since then, and actually during COVID, I still feel quite upset that we never actually got any time off. I was, yeah, I just felt really, it's not fair. Everybody else is off, and actually,
Yeah.
we're actually working harder than ever, just trying to translate legislation as it was coming out by the hour. But past COVID and getting things back into some sort of sense, I've seen a massive change in business owners, businesses, and people generally, actually. So I think it has had a massive impact. Some of it good, some of it maybe not so good. But generally, I think work-life balance is definitely something people are really interested in, and also mental health, isn't it? It is sort of anything that helps with mental health with people. I think
Yeah.
it's highlighted struggles.
100%. Definitely. I think it is. I think the way the world's changed, there's no doubt about it. The generation, kind of the boomers and post war, certainly there was a lot more to have maybe have mental health issues around. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of misconception that we live this very fortunate life. It's a lot easier now than it was 50 years ago. But I think the difference that has changed a lot is the introduction of things like the internet, social media. I mean, social media is obviously one of the big ones. I mean, there's so many benefits to social media, but unfortunately, there is also so many negatives. And I think, especially within the young adolescents and teenagers, it's this added pressure that wasn't there before that they can't seem to escape. And I think, that certainly has knock-on effects. I've always been a big advocate for mental health, and for many reasons. Yeah, I think it is, we have to be aware of the external factors at play that impact our employees that we might not be aware of. I think you can't just assume that because they're coming to work and they seem okay at work that everything else is okay on the outside.
Yeah, I agree. And I think companies are getting more understanding about it, or most are. And I think going back years where things were so different to where we are
Yeah.
now, I think there's so much in place. And I do believe, I mean, there's so much legislation in place as well, obviously, to help and protect employees. And in some cases, I feel that we may have overstepped that a little bit. I think the employees' health and well-being is really important, but so is the business that's trying to support them. And legislation sometimes has to do what's best for everybody. And it's not necessarily the legislation that may be incorrect. It's maybe how it's being interpreted. But I know for some business owners, they're currently feeling very restricted because of the legislation, and they're scared
Mm.
to employ because taxes are going up, and they're scared because employment rules and laws are forever changing. So yeah, HR has become lots of things, and to include within that, obviously, people's health and well-being. So it's a difficult time, I think, for business and for individuals, and
Yeah,
the whole mix of it all. It just years ago, I think employees probably weren't looked after correctly. But we've got to be careful not to put so much to the employee that feels restricted to employ, which I think
absolutely.
where we're on the cusp of that at the moment. And hence, companies now looking maybe to start employing overseas and outsourcing to countries to
Yeah.
get work done, which is concerning as well.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. The amount of VAs and
Mm.
technical assistants that are all abroad that you can just, get them on small retainers or whatnot to take on some of like the admin work or even some of the technical work. You're right. There's a lot of companies choosing to look abroad for
Mm.
these virtual assistants, basically, and I think that is scary because then it gets to the point where we're not we're not upskilling, we're not giving people that are born and bred in England the opportunity to for those jobs for
Yeah,
those.
I totally agree. And I think it's a very difficult, I know within the accounting sector, certainly there's lots of outsourcing to other countries. I had tried it years and years ago and I just didn't like it for a number of reasons. But one of those, I can go with our guys, we all talk. So we're talking, we know what's going on in the office. You can't do
Yeah,
that if somebody is, millions of miles away in a different direction. So
yeah,
there's positives for the company in cost, but I it's not something that I would continue to necessarily do for an accounting function or to
yeah,
offer um or to try to try and get some additional help. But sometimes I think people are forced to because they can't get the help, they can't get people placed in the UK.
yeah,
So it's a bit of a mix mash, but I do feel that we do need to try and support the UK wherever we can, but obviously dependent on the government. We want
yeah,
them to support us as a business. And I do feel that businesses have been targeted by, I would say, inexperience in those governing us, because
mm,
I know after the recession in the early 2000s, I remember Prime Minister Cameron standing up and thanking the SME sector and saying, without you, we wouldn't have come out of the recession so quickly. And it was almost like as soon as he had ticked that box, they literally, and subsequent governments, have just taken away any of the positives that small business owners had.
yeah,
Now, I believed that we did have some tax breaks as SMEs years ago, and that's because of the risk that SMEs put in. So those owning those SMEs are giving up holidays. They're probably not paying into pensions as well as they should do, or if at all. They're putting all their life savings. Some people are putting everything into starting their own business. So actually, there should be something that actually is given to them to acknowledge the additional things they're doing to try
yeah,
and bring forward a new business and then employ other people. And that was always there for many years, but certainly since early 2000s, we've just seen a very steady approach by the
yeah.
government that has decimated small business.
Completely. Again, it's a conversation I have very often. I have it certainly over the last 6 months, obviously with all the changes that the government made with national insurance and minimum wage and with rates, obviously with our background being hospitality and having a lot of customers in that sector. But there was a lot of small business owners saying to me, there's just no incentive to be in business. These people have been in business for decades, some of them, and they're now starting to think, I can't keep doing this because it just gets harder and harder and harder. And the
Yeah.
government don't listen. No one listens. No one seems to, you know, take on the feedback that people are trying to give them. And that I have found there's a lot of small business owners fed up at the minute, which is terrible because the small businesses make the local community, your local butchers, your local hairdressers, your cafe on the corner, all that sort of stuff. These are
Yeah.
the community hubs. These are what make Britain Britain as well, you know, these small high streets with your independent traders.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I was listening to a gentleman from the FSB speaking this morning, and I think he said something, and don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure he said that 80% of business in the UK is within the SME sector.
Yeah.
So by decimating the sector that is actually helping to bring in the taxes and help everybody stay employed, gainfully employed, I just cannot understand how subsequent
Yeah,
chancellors have allowed that to happen.
I know.
And I remember even during COVID, I remember, and I did write to my MPs continually because I was really upset about it. But directors of companies where they were taking, as they still do to a degree, take lower salaries. They do pay slightly less NI, but they often pay more in tax. And the disparity between employed and self-employed isn't huge anymore, but they were not catered for. So they had nothing. They literally got nothing from the government as small
Yeah.
business owners throughout COVID. And I remember petitioning, I sent a letter to the Chancellor, and I did get a response that pretty much said, well, they're catered for with the self-employed. Well, they're not self-employed. Directors are not self-employed. They're employees of their own companies. So for me to have a Chancellor that didn't understand the disparity there was shocking.
Yeah.
And I think that's continued. I just don't believe that anyone in those roles understands the SME sector at all. And the people they're talking to and protecting tend to be the bigger companies that are not the SME sector, who don't really need the protection. I mean, they do need protections. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but they don't need the same protections that the SME
Correct.
sector do. And it is, yeah,
Yeah,
devastating to me. But
I agree.
I'm constantly writing letters, but it doesn't get me anywhere.
I know.
Someone has to say something. Maybe one day someone will come back and go, actually, what do you mean? And we might get somewhere.
Yeah, good. No, it's good that someone's standing up for the, you know, for the SME sector. It needs it. You know, it needs more
Um,
people like you trying to make a stand and putting points across, because for as long as it might fall on deaf ears, you've got to try, haven't you? Because if you don't try, you'll never get anywhere.
yeah, and it would be nice. I know, obviously, the FSB is a great resource for small business. Yeah, they're not totally picking up what people need. And I'm
Yeah.
sure they are, they are within that sort of framework doing as much as they possibly can. But it would be nice to see more small business owners maybe petitioning things to try and get change. We're in a difficult time again because governments, whether they listen or not is another question.
Mm.
But yeah, it is really difficult, I think, for the SME sector, and things do need to change. They do need a little bit more support from the government.
Definitely, definitely. So there's something our listeners are often interested in is the background and also kind of the future plans for that where business owners that have been in business for as long as yourself. So when you get to where you've got to and you've had such a good career, what kind of goals and aspirations do you set? Do you still set 1, 3, 5 year plans, or do you take it 1 year at a time, or how do you set targets you want to achieve?
I think for all business owners should be from the time they've started, they should have a plan. Sadly, I don't see that often. I know they do in their heads, but the difficulty with keeping it in your head is you're not making yourself accountable because you're
Mm.
constantly changing it in your head. Whereas
Right.
if you have something on paper and you're writing a plan, it doesn't have to be anything, you can take it to extremes, good extremes or bad extremes, depending on how you look at it. But you can have somebody who's got a really good business plan that is normally looked at the end of every year, or, partway through a year, whatever it may be. They have a plan that may go from 3 to 5 years generally. And within that, then some of them obviously also budget, and they'll have budgets of how much they want to spend. But the main point about the plans is that you should start with where you want to be really at the beginning. Where do you want to get to? Otherwise, you can find yourself drifting a little bit. And if you have a plan that people are aware of, so you share with your accountant your plan, it's a good, for it's a good talking point when your accounts come in as to, okay, so where are we going with this? And often I would say that, especially people who are quite entrepreneurial, is they keep flipping. So they've got this on the go and then, oh my God, but that's such a good deal. And I really need to do this. And then it's like, oh my God, but this is happening over here. So actually, they're dividing themselves up into lots of people with
Yeah.
lots of things to manage. And their main aim is now, rather than having a straight route to that main aim, they're literally got this zigzag. They'll probably still get there, but it may take them longer because they haven't actually focused on what they wanted to do. And sometimes, if you can actually concentrate on where you want to be, and with every decision that you get in business, and let's face it, we're getting those every day, but it can help you sort of go, well, actually, I could do that now. And it is whatever's happening over here might be a really good deal that I really don't want to miss, but I think I'm going to have to miss on this occasion and
Yeah.
keep going on this path because I don't have the funds or I don't have the time or I don't have the input from employees behind me that will allow me to do this well. And I've seen a good few businesses that have actually caused themselves harm really because they just keep going. It's like
Yeah.
you're on a really fast treadmill and you've got to keep going rather than stopping every now and then, reviewing it and saying, well, actually, how much further are we? And then
Yes.
you get to a point where I suppose as you're getting, and for different people, it's different things. Some people will say to me, I want to retire at 40, others 50, others 60, others, I never want to retire. But they're always looking for how to, especially if they've acquired a lot of assets during that time, then it's planning, obviously, for an exit. And it's not necessarily ever too early to plan. You've got to be mindful that tax legislation is changing. So you do need to have something in place as a final idea as to what you're going to do.
Yeah.
With some clients, I'll have some of them say to me, actually, I'm just going to close the doors. I'm not interested in selling my business. I just want to carry on until I stop. And others are very adamant that they want to achieve the highest possible value for a business that they're going to sell in 5, 10, 15 years. So it does vary. What would be really nice, because I do find over the years, some people just don't really think about it at all. They're just started in business and they're now into the business. And then something happens that then focuses their mind. They may lose a
Yeah.
relative or something happens. And then suddenly they go, oh my God, I actually don't know where I want to be. I don't even know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Had they had a plan, it would be something to hold on to maybe and focus a little
Yeah.
bit more forward.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So what's the aspirations for you guys then? Have you got a plan yourself? Do you know where you want it to be? Are you now at a point of maintenance level, or have you got growth plans? Whereabouts are you in the journey?
For me, I've always got growth plans until the point of retirement. Then I've got growth plans, and I've still got my youngest is 15, so she's still got some time to get through finishing school and college and uni or getting herself established. But yeah, I think I do have a plan to still grow the business until that point, really, until I've got all of my children through education, and then
Yeah.
at that point, I may well then start looking at amending the practice to where I want it to be.
Yeah.
At the point of then what happens to it, and do I have people from internally who may take the practice forward, or will I, sell out to somebody else? But I have ideas on those, but I'm not at that point yet to take that part further.
Of course, no, absolutely. So in terms of strategy with growth and marketing, acquiring new clients, how do you guys do it? Yeah, how is it done with accountancy? Do you grow through all word of mouth, or do you actually have outbound kind of conversations? How do you go about acquiring new business in accountancy?
It's actually quite a mixed match of things that we do. And I think the world's changed, I have to say, firstly, because years ago, obviously, we didn't have social media. We didn't really have the ability to. And when I started, we didn't have email. It's a
Mm.
long time ago. So now, actually, we do an element of marketing through our own marketing. So we're marketing clients mainly with things that are going on within that. But obviously, the idea of any marketing is to stay in the mindset of the clients and see what they might need. But also, it then reminds them if somebody else is asking for something that they know that we can deliver, that hopefully and generally they do recommend us. So I would say that mostly we do grow via referral, and I don't think that will ever change. However, that doesn't stop us doing anything else. So we do have a presence on Instagram and Facebook, and we do LinkedIn posts as well. So we are trying to stay within the social media area. We do have to do that, and I think it just keeps our name out there. Really, I don't believe for accountants. And I may be shot down for this, but I don't believe that websites are more than a very good business card for us.
Yeah.
Because I think people want to go see who we are, see whether or not we are qualified, whether we're a chartered practice or not. And that's pretty much it. And then it's more about the actual relationship. And I will always say to anybody I meet that you have to like your accountant. You have to be able to pick up the phone and have a chat. If you don't, then you're with the wrong person.
Yeah.
And my clients do often call me or they'll text me or whatever, but it is nice that they feel that that relationship is there, that they can communicate with me.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, we use a number of things, and obviously getting out and about. So I do a few sort of business clubs and business
Yeah.
meetings now, and I cannot knock at all. And I think for any business, actually, getting out there and networking is hugely important. Um,
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, a
Not
lot.
only if you think about it from a perspective of I'm marketing, so I'm sending things out via MailChimp or via any of the other products, Facebook, yeah, social media. But actually, you're meeting people in person. And as those relationships grow, so if you're a member of different groups and people get to know you, then actually you've now enhanced your marketing team because all of
Yeah.
those people are marketing you as well. So
Absolutely.
unless you get to know these people and more people, then you're restricting who is
Yes.
going to refer to you. So
Yeah.
I do recommend that to clients as well. Join networking groups and
Absolutely. Yeah.
try and
And I do a
meet
lot
other people.
myself. So, in terms of your clientele, are they all a lot of them geographically close to you, or do you work from? Do you have clients from all over the UK?
We do have a base that are close to us, and
Yeah.
we live quite rurally, so we do have a few sort of local clients as well. And I've moved around over the years. The last 20 odd years I've been here, but I have got clients from all of the areas from whence I've lived or from whence I came. But I would say that in addition to that, the world's a very different place. So when I first started, 99% of our clients were local, and you would be
Yeah.
visiting them, they'd be dropping in. Now, because of our electronic communication, really, and ways of collecting data, so they no longer have to drop off little bags of receipts. It's literally an
Mhm.
app on the phone and you take a picture. That's changed over the years considerably. So now I have clients not only throughout the UK, but I have clients throughout the world. So we have
Brilliant.
clients who are in America and Thailand and
Yeah.
Japan and all over really. We only look at the UK implications of anything they're doing. We're not looking at
Yeah.
the taxes in those countries, but often we have to work alongside them. So, or they may have a company that's still based in the UK.
Yeah.
So we're still managing the UK arm of that. So yeah, we're very different to where we used to be, where it was very local.
Brilliant. Amazing. Well, I don't know how time's gone that quick already. We're nearly 45 minutes in, so it has honestly been brilliant talking to you. The one
And
thing
yeah.
I always like to end things with, Angelique, is this question here. And feel free to take some time to think about the answer. But if there was one piece of advice you could give to an aspiring entrepreneur or someone just getting started out in business, what would that piece of advice be and why?
Just say that when you're starting in business, one thing, if you look at bigger businesses, if I expand that a little bit, businesses who are very successful have their own teams of people, and they have their own finance team. So for me, looking at how businesses are, I've seen people start businesses and they've failed because they haven't had the finance behind them to actually take the business forward or any clue. And I've heard often people say, oh, you don't need an accountant for at least 2 years of starting a business. There's actually, to me, it's get an accountant behind the scenes before you've started. Now, you don't need to be, they may not be doing a lot for you at that point, but their skill set as accountants, we've seen hundreds of businesses. I've certainly seen thousands of businesses. And therefore, that knowledge is something I've gained over many years. And without that knowledge of finance, without that skill set, I think businesses have, let's face it, something like 70% of small businesses fail within the first 5 or 6 years of trading. And a lot of that is because they're trying to cut one of the biggest benefits out of their business before they've even started, someone who can help. And what also stems from that is, and this is something that really frustrates the heck out of me, is that if you're a solicitor, you are qualified, and you know when you go to a solicitor, they're a solicitor. When you go to an accountant, they're not all qualified. So anyone can call themselves an accountant. So
Mhm.
my daughter could start up tomorrow and call herself an accountant. There is nothing in legislation that protects us or our profession. And that's a little bit frustrating. So I would say to them, find yourself somebody who, as an accountant, that you can communicate with, who's qualified, and you can build that good rapport up from the beginning. Because without that financial background within your business, the chances are you're going to struggle.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a numbers game at the end of the day, and it's quite easy to misjudge and miscalculate and not quite know your key metrics, and such a massive
Yeah.
part of
I've
getting the
seen
business
some
to start.
horror stories, honestly. I wouldn't even like to start, but yeah, it's often, I have had somebody come to me earlier, I would have saved them a lot of money, but they leave
Yeah,
it so late that it's too late.
can
Mm.
imagine. Well, Anthony, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you today.
And
Really,
you.
really enjoyed our time, and yeah, I've no doubt. Hopefully, we'll keep in touch, and we'll potentially get you back on again in a year or two's time, and see where you're at, and see the journey and progression. So, just yeah, thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed your time.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a lovely time.
Good. Very welcome.